Eastern Standard Time. That can only mean one thing. Live after hours with your favorite RCD, Chuck Bowser. You know that's me. You know that's me. Don't even try to pretend like I'm not your favorite RCDD. You know I am. Here, let me take this up so I can see. Yeah, I'm running a little bit late tonight because I had some issues. I've wanted to try to do this up in the new podcast studio because I've been working on it. Hence the fire-rated plywood, painting, and all that stuff. And had all kinds of problems. Computer problems, TV problems, microphone problems. But I persisted. I got through it. Yes. So normally I would do, what are you drinking? But I forgot to bring up a drink up here. I'm not doing really good today, am I? I'm not doing really good at all. And let's do the acronym challenge. POE. POE. What does POE stand for? Go ahead and tell me in the chat box. I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. It has something to do with tonight's questions. Daryl, the RCD's in the house. Hello, Daryl. Hey, let me know, how is the microphone working? Can you hear me good? Let me know in the chat box. Trying a new microphone tonight. So I am in the new podcast studio, and I got one coat of paint on this, two coats of paint on this wall, one coat of paint on that wall. As you can see, I did not paint over my fire stamps. Next step is to put in the static flooring, and then once the static flooring is in, then I'll bring the rack up here, put in the ladder rack, the J-hooks, the blocks, all that stuff. So making progress on the podcast studio. Just not fast enough for me. Just not fast enough for me. So I do have a few questions I want to get through today. The first one comes from my friend, Hunter Petrie. And Hunter is, him and I got to meet at the BICSI conference. And he asked me a pretty good question. He asked me, hey Chuck, have you ever done any podcasts on composite fiber power cabling and end-to-end solutions? We have some extended solutions, extended locations that require POE. Just curious. So I'm aware of three of them, okay? My computer's doing something really funky here. It doesn't close it down. I'm aware of three of them. Two of them are cable-only solutions. One is a cable and a component solution. So you really got to ask yourself, am I good at designing getting the equipment, or do I want a turnkey system? Okay, so both Panduit and Belden both make composite fiber solutions where you can get fiber connected with 12 gauge copper conductors for the DC current, and then you can get the fiber in multi-mode, single mode, inside plant, outside plant, armored fiber, all the variations. And both the Belden and the Panduit solutions are cable only solutions. So you better be good at trying to pick what kind of equipment you have. And then Leviton has what they call their one source solution, where it's the composite fiber, copper, and it comes with the transmitter and the receiver. So if you're not good at that kind of stuff, that's going to be a good system. I'm going to do more depth in that later on, because, like I said, I had all my notes together, but with all the issues I had with my computers today, I'm just kind of at my wit's end. The next question comes from Daniel Bond. He sent to me this via LinkedIn, and he said, I have a question which perhaps is a little more niche concerning 28 gauge cabling. Our team lead is pushing hard for slim 28 gauge patch cords everywhere he can, regardless of what the end devices are or how powerful the switches are they are connecting to. Is this a danger of overheating or device failure when using, say, PoE++ or maybe even higher standards? So let me talk about that for a second. 28 gauge patch cords. The bigger the number, the smaller the conductor. And we already know that patch cords can have up to 20% more attenuation than stranded conductor cabling. So because of that, 28 gauge patch cords are going to be limited to about 20 feet in total when you add them onto that 90 meter channel. So that's only about, 10 feet per side. They do require an additional D rating when you compare them to the 24 gauge or the 26 gauge because they're a smaller gauge conductor. And DC loop resistance has to stay under 25 ohms. And by the way, that D rating factor is 1.95. So you got to meet all those requirements. And then basically, if you have a 100 meter channel, it basically becomes a 96 meter channel because you use 28 gauge patch cords. Now, 28 gauge patch cords should not really exceed a total of 15 meters in length. And this is not random because, like I said, 28 gauge has a higher resistance and higher insertion loss because, again, the smaller the conductor, the higher the resistance. What's up? I can't see who that is because I don't have my glasses on. Broadcasting from the podcast studio tonight. So yeah, the smaller conductor equals higher resistance, and physics just does not negotiate. So now let's talk about your 28 gauge conductors and PoE and heat. The short answer is yes, you can, but if you're not careful, it's going to cause you problems. Again, number one, the first thing you got to watch out for: high resistance. PoE is current driven. As the current increases, the heat increases exponentially with the resistance. And since 28 gauge conductors has more resistance than a 24 gauge conductor, it's going to run hotter than, say, a 24 gauge with the same load. Number two, PoE++ pushes a lot more current. Now, type 3 and type 4 PoE, often called PoE++, or sometimes you might hear them referred to as 802.3 BT, they can deliver up to 60 or even 90 watts at the source. And that means significantly more current flow through those small little conductors. So now when we do any kind of PoE, you always know that you got to worry about, Jay, who's in the house? Whenever we do PoE over cabling, you know we got to worry about heat. And you heard me say more than one time, the maximum number of cables that you want to put in a bundle of cables that you know is going to have PoE is 24. And that's found in the BICSI best practices. Again, 28 gauge has more heat. So the danger here is that risk is going to show up. It's going to cause you all kinds of problems well before you get to that 24 port. Now, large bundles in the pathways, the risk that you're running into is, if you do the 24 cables, you're going to have higher heat. You're going to have higher count on the PoE switches and a very warm telecom room. And we know warm telecom rooms can cause you a lot of problems when it comes to the performance of the cable plant, right? And also high load devices, for example, like PTZ cameras, pan tilt zoom, LED lighting, and digital signage can also cause problems because they require even more current. So now when you stack up the resistance conductors with the higher current and maybe even the tight bundling, this temperature is going to rise and it's going to become measured. The reality is, will it melt? Probably not. There's one of my puppies. Go on, go play. Go on, go play. They didn't want to see you. Go play. Go on. So will it melt? Probably not. Will it fail certification? Or will it run hotter than 24 gauge? Yeah, it will. And that can contribute to long-term degradation of the cable. Absolutely can. Now, what is the snapshot that I'm really warning you about here? Excuse me. Remember I told you the DC loop resistance and insertion loss. The standards are already telling you that 28 gauge pushes those limits of that channel performance. So if you're already derating the length just to pass the electrical limits, then adding PO on top of that is stacking risk on top of risk. So my recommendation to you is, no, I would not use 28 gauge patch cords, especially with PoE++. But if you do, there are some assumptions you have to make. Number one, make sure you use really short patch cords. Make sure you do your proper calculations. Make sure you check your DC loop resistance. And make sure, listen to this, you really control the installation conditions. Because if your team lead really wants those slim patch cords everywhere, regardless of the device power or the switch capability, that's not standards-based thinking. That's aesthetic-driven thinking. And just because it looks good doesn't mean it works good. Okay? So, again, slim patch cords, they're great for high-density patch panels, which, by the way, I've never been a big fan of high-density patch panels. They're great for connecting interconnects together on racks, going from one rack to another rack. And also, they're good for clean management, but they're not ideal as a universal solution for PoE environments. Now, here's the straight talk that you can take back to that person who's saying that they want to use 20 gauge conductors. If you're deploying PoE++, especially type 4, the best practice is going to be 24 gauge patch cords in the channel, particularly with high density switch environments. Using 28 gauge where it makes sense, not everywhere, just because it looks pretty. So again, I would stay away from 28 gauge, stay with 24 gauge with the PoE++ and your heavy loads. 26 gauge is acceptable if you monitor your proper length control and 28 gauge only for those short control patching scenarios. Again, remember, you got to make sure that you're verifying your DC loop resistance and you're considering the bundle temperature. Are we validating against TIA and BICSI guidance for higher PoE? Well, no, the answer is no, but then again, this is opinion, not engineering. You're not wrong to question the use of 28 gauge patch cords. You're just not. Next question, this comes from YTS Garcia. I got a question. I kind of gave my brain a break after attaining my RCD. I now want a new challenge. In your opinion, should I go for the RTPM or the DC-DC? Well, first off, Garcia, respect. You climbed that RCD mountain, and that's not a participation trophy. That's a credential. That shows that you have blood and sweat and lots of late nights with coffee. So taking a brain break after that, totally earned, totally earned. Now, if you're itching to do it again, now that tells me something about you. You're not done leveling up. You're still climbing that ladder. Now let's unpack this the right way instead of just tossing out, hey, go get this one. Because there are people out there that are what I call credential collectors. They just want credentials just because it's the cool thing to have. So now let's unpack this. RTPM versus DC-DC. There are two totally different animals. Now the RTPM, for those who may not know, Registered Telecommunications Project Manager. This credential is all about execution. It's about running jobs. It's about managing scope. It's about managing schedules, watching your budgets, figuring out the risk on the job, coordination, and don't forget, documentation, right? Documentation in the telecom and the ICT environments. So now if you're really thinking that you want to, if you want to move into or solidify a PM role, then the RTPM is going to be better good for you. If you want to run bigger projects, if you want to increase your earnings ceilings, if you want credibility in the owner meetings, then the RTPM absolutely makes sense. It pairs very well with the RCDD because not only are you now designing compliant systems, you're managing the very delivery of them. Think of it this way: the RCDD is what you need to know how to design it, how to build it. The RTPM, you know how to get it built even with all the chaos. Because we all know every project has chaos to it. Now look at the DC-DC, the Data Center Design Consultant. Now this is a deeper, more specialized, also very focused mission critical type of environment. And the DC-DC, it's going to get into things like power and cooling fundamentals, data center topology, reduced data center topology, basic data center topology, redundance tiers. There's like 5 levels of redundancy when you start getting into data centers. You're going to start talking about reliability concepts and operational resilience because data centers want to operate at the 4 nines, the 99.99, actually 5 nines, 99.9999. That means literally, I think you can only have like an hour downtime a year. So they really want to have that operational resilience because if the data center goes down, there's a huge impact everywhere. Now, if you want to specialize in data centers, or if you want to consult in mission critical spaces, or you're just fascinated by uptime and resilience, and you want to operate in those high dollar environments, then the DC-DC credential is going to be powerful for you. It's going to be what you want to go after. I just saw a video today with Mike Rowe. Yeah, that Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy. And he was talking about, he said he talked to an electrician, and that electrician was telling him that he made $230,000 a year. $230,000 a year. That's a ton of money. And I'm personally aware of people in the low voltage side working in data centers being offered positions of over $200,000 a year. But the DC-DC is going to narrow your lane. That's the problem, right? The RTPM gives you, is going to give you a little bit broader highway to drive down. Neither one is better than the other, and they just serve different futures. So let me ask you the real question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you see yourself running projects? Do you see yourself building a consulting firm? Do you see yourself specializing in the data centers or even becoming a strategic advisor? Because that's the answer that should drive your decision, not what Chuck would do. What would you do based on those things I just listed for you? Now, let me give you a simple filter. If you're on a current trajectory, if your current trajectory is leadership, project oversight, contracts, and managing people, then go with the RTPM. If your trajectory is high-end design specification, particularly like in data centers, then go DC-DC. But you also need to consider that you just finished your RCDD, and that credential has already elevated your technical authority. If you stack DC-DC right now, you double down technically. If you stack your RTPM, you balance your portfolio with management strength. So there's also a lot of money conversation happening as well. And I'm gonna tell you straight. PM skill sets scale income faster than niche technical specializations in any market. Not always, but quite often. Especially if you want to run larger projects or eventually own your work. If you own a market, data center, part of you play hyperscale builds, then DC it is going to be a rare asset for you. One more angle that most people miss, right? What stretches you more? What intrigues you more? What inspires you more? You know, the RTD, that stretched your technical brain. The RTP is going to stretch your leadership brain. The DC-DC is going to stretch your mission critical systems brain. So which muscle do you feel is underdeveloped? And if you're advising someone personally, and I do not know the market specifics, I would learn the RTPM first. It rounds you out. It makes you more dangerous in a boardroom, and it complements the RCD beautifully. And then later, if data centers become your niche, then stack the DC-DC on top of it. I've taken DC data center classes at BICSI, and they were harder for me than the project management classes I've taken. And just because that's not something I deal with on a daily basis. But if your heart lights up when you talk about redundancy, right? If your heart lights up when you start talking about cooling strategies, then you already have your answer. Data center it is. You're not chasing a credential. Remember this, you are building a direction. You're heading in one direction or the other, okay? Now tell me this, are you more excited about managing the orchestra or are you designing a concert hall? Answer that question obviously, and I think the decision becomes obvious. Okay, the next question, this comes from Jake M from YouTube, and he says, Chuck, I've been pulling cable and terminating for about 3 years. How do I know when I'm ready to move into a lead tech or foreman role? Okay, number one, are you solving problems without waiting to be told? That's the first question for you. Do you understand prints? And can you explain them? This is the key. Can you explain them to others? If you care about quality, not just speed, then other techs will naturally come to you with your questions. You think about the next step in the job before even the PM does. If you're doing all this stuff already, then yes, I'm going to tell you that I think you are. The bonus line is, if you're only thinking about the ladder, then you're not ready. But if you're thinking about which floor you are, then you are ready. Maria from LinkedIn questions me, says, Chuck, is it better to specialize in fiber early in my career, or should I stay more general with copper systems? That depends on your opportunities. It really does depend on your opportunities. Early career, I think a broad exposure will build a stronger foundation. I know people who start off only doing copper, then they learn fiber specialization skills, and they increase their earning potentials. I know people that's all ever done. But you know, tend to think, well, copper is easy, Chuck. I can always learn it later. Copper is easier, but that doesn't make it easy. So keep that in mind. You need to start thinking about your copper knowledge, because it still matters for POE, for grounding, for testing, for certification, for qualification. Being dual skilled means that you are more recession proof. That means you're less likely to get laid off. You're less likely to get fired because you have multiple skills where somebody else may only have copper skills or fiber skills, right? Specialize after you understand the whole system, how this whole system fits together, and as the opportunity prevails itself. Because sometimes when you get really good at copper, then your company will say, well, look, hey, let's get you some fiber skills. Okay, well, in that case, then get them. I don't know if I would recommend doing one or the other, although there are more people out there selling copper than there are fiber. The people out there say, yeah, the copper's going away, fiber's gonna be around for a long time. Not really. They've been saying it since like 40 plus years ago, right? Just remember this: specialists get paid well. Generalists, people survive downturns better. And I consider myself a generalist. You know, I am an RCD, I am a BICSI tech, but I don't know everything. I specialize in structured cabling systems. There are people out there who do DAS, people out there who do fire alarm. That stuff's beyond my comprehension. I'm a generalist with structured cabling. That just means I'm gonna be around a long time. So Devon from TikTok says, with AI coming in, should I be worrying about my job as an installer? It's kind of funny that Devon sent me this question because I'm actually going to Costa Rica in March to speak at a BICSI event about how AI impacts the low voltage industry. I just submitted the PowerPoint just the other day to them, and I'm looking forward to going there. I'm also doing a class on bonding and grounding too. I'm looking really forward to that trip. Now, here's the thing. Installers are safer in the short term than estimators and PMs. What I'm saying there is AI right now is already commonplace. AI is already impacting people in the office, right? That you can use AI to evaluate reports. You can use AI to do takeoffs. There's a software package I was exposed to 3 years ago where you put the software through the AI and it will count up the number of faceplates, the number of connectors, the length of the cable, the types of blocks you need. And that was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Those software skills are here now. Now let's talk about the field, because that's what you were technically asking. I think you're going to see the impact in the office, even though there's AI doing it now. I really think you're going to start seeing layoffs probably within the next 18 months to 3 years for office people, because now one project manager can do multiple projects instead of just one project, right? In the field, it's a little more complex than that because you need to have dexterity. You need to have somebody who can pull cable. And I'm continuing to have a Chuck, they're not going to make a robot to do that. They already are making humanoid robots. Elon Musk says he has a robot he's trying to sell for $20,000. I even saw a video at I think it was Boston Labs, where it was a humanoid robot. It did a triple cartwheel and landed on its feet. So they're not there yet, but it's coming. It's coming. Repetitive documentation tasks are going to get automated first, right? Troubleshooting skills, they're going to become more valuable because the testers are going to have AI embedded in them, and based on the test results and based on the history of the people working there and their skill sets, it's going to be able to help you troubleshoot faster. Knowing the standards is going to create career protection. Now, the tech who learns how to use AI tools, or the project manager who learns to use AI tools, will outpace those techs who ignore them. AI is not replacing the installer. AI understands layer 1 physics. It's just going to make us more efficient. Curtis from Facebook says, I'm an installer 1. Should I go for installer 2 tech or jump straight to the RCDD? Okay, installer 1. I'm just level certification. Work your way up through the system. That's my best response. Go do the installer 2, get the installer copper, installer fiber, then go to the tech, because that's going to build your foundation. By the time you get done with the tech certification, then you're going to jump to the RCD. A lot of that stuff's going to seem very familiar to you at that point, right? You build that back before you start the RCD. Qualifications you meet, you got in order to take your RCD, you have a minimum 5 years, or 2 have more in technical college, or 2 years in previous certification, or 2 in encryption, and you got to document those the skill sets.